Need some coins for that God Squad you've always wanted? Check out rockbottomcoins.com for your one-stop shop of buying or selling coins and solo grinding services. Use code Zirksee at checkout for 10% off your order.
The whole thing wobbin'.
So, let's talk about the Cowboys. Well, I guess the first thing I should talk about is the fact I actually expected the Cowboys to possibly win this game. And not because I'm a biased Cowboys fan, but because I legitimately thought that the Cowboys had a chance to win this game. I thought we had a very good matchup going. Looking at Goff's game and how, like all of his games the rest of the year and in the entire year, he really has not played that great. And the only teams they've actually faced that had good defenses, he really did not play that good. And specifically for one game I was looking at was the Bears. He played really, really bad versus the Bears. And obviously that was at Chicago. A little bit different scenarios there between the Bears and the Cowboys defense. I personally think the Bears defense probably a little bit better. I still thought the Cowboys defense was very solid, and I thought we could definitely shut down Jared Goff. And seeing how we did to Chris Carson, 13 carries for 20 yards, I know it's a completely different team with Chris Carson compared to like Todd Gurley and the Rams. But I think the big issue here was not necessarily Todd Gurley, but more so the duo of Todd Gurley and CJ Anderson. On the very first drive of the game, we had 2 neutral zone infraction penalties, giving them quite a few yards. And then, of course, they basically just gashed us up with CJ Anderson and Todd Gurley all the way down to the red zone. And they ended up having to settle for a field goal. But that definitely set the pace for the game. And you could already tell right there, if CJ Anderson was going to run like that the rest of the game, it was not going to go good for the Cowboys. Now, of course, on the next drive, which of course was the Cowboys' first drive of the game, we came out, hit a strike to Amari Cooper for a 30-yard touchdown. That was really nice, and you definitely noticed there, him and Marcus Peters were definitely jawing at each other that first drive, and they even got into a little altercation that resulted in a penalty on Marcus Cooper and gave us a couple yards there. And I kind of was surprised that Amari Cooper didn't get penalized on that play as well, because he was definitely scrapping back with Marcus Peters, but you could tell they were definitely jawing at each other, and that was going to be a matchup to watch. And with Amari Cooper having that good of a first drive, I kind of thought it would be like that all game, with Amari Cooper being down there just picking up 30 yards, 20 yards at a time. He didn't really continue that on the rest of the game. Now, also something that I noticed in the first drive was Zeke got up a little bit hobbled there. Now, it didn't look like it affected him the rest of the game. Maybe it did, but he just didn't let it show. But you could definitely tell if you watch that, like the first couple runs. After them, Zeke got up, and he was definitely hurt. And then, of course, the Rams' second drive is when they really let CJ Anderson loose. This man gashed us for 15 yards, 10 yards, all the way down to the red zone once again, and they thought they had a touchdown to Brandon Cooks. Cooks did not catch it. I think Byron Jones may have jarred it loose just a little bit and made that incomplete. Then they tried him again, and that was incomplete. They had to take a field goal there. So the defense, honestly, I wasn't feeling very confident about them. A very bend, don't break type defense, just kind of how the Cowboys have played all year long. But we did stop them to another field goal, so being up 7-6, I was feeling a little bit confident about that. That went down pretty quick. So then the Cowboys get the ball back, and what do? Nothing. We punt the ball back to them. They drive all the way down the field running the ball. They basically just played our game plan all game long. I feel like the Cowboys were prepared for Todd Gurley. We weren't prepared for them to run the ball as many times as they did. And CJ Anderson and Todd Gurley, I don't know how this man, CJ Anderson, was tearing us up like that. That offensive line that the Rams have is just different. They're completely special. Have to give it to the Rams offensive line. They played an amazing game. There was definitely a lot of holding calls that were not called. There's tons of screenshots you can find out there on Twitter of even on the goal line, the 1-yard touchdown with CJ Anderson where they scored. And of course, wasn't looking too good for my boys. Once again, Cowboys get the ball and do absolutely nothing with it, punt it back, and they run it again for another rushing touchdown. This time it was Todd Gurley, though. 35-yard rushing touchdown, and wasn't looking too hot. But then guess what? The Cowboys get the ball back, and you'll never guess what happens before the second half, or before the end of the second quarter. We punt it back again. They go down the field. They have to settle for a field goal attempt, 63 yards, and of course they didn't end up making it. So going into halftime, the Cowboys were down by quite a bit, and I gotta say I was not feeling too confident. Now, if we just want to take a little comparison here and take a look at the box score. I know the box score doesn't tell the entire story of the game. It never does. But let's just take a look at the stats. Dak Prescott, 266 yards and 1 touchdown. And he was only sacked 1 time. Those stats for Dak Prescott, and it sounds kind of bad for an NFL quarterback to have, those are a good stat line for a game. That's actually not a bad stat line for a game. Also, a stat that I read earlier this week, the Cowboys were actually undefeated when Dak and Zeke both got a rushing touchdown. Now, that obviously doesn't stand. So Dak Prescott, 2 total touchdowns, 266 yards, 20 for 32, and he was only sacked 1 time with a passer rating of 99.2. Even though he only had 2 total touchdowns, usually the Cowboys would win with that stat line. Then, of course, you see what happened on the Rams side. And this is where we really needed to show out and do something on the offensive side, and it just didn't happen. Jared Goff did not even have a good game. He went 15 for 28, almost a 50% completion percentage, 186 yards, 0 touchdowns, didn't have a pick, and he wasn't sacked. He had a 74.4 passer rating. Now, of course, if you take a look at the rushing, this is where the big difference is. Obviously, Zeke, 20 for 47 and a touchdown, with his longest run only being a 15 yards. That is not a good game for Zeke. You can tell by that, obviously. CJ Anderson, though, this man, I did not in any universe expect CJ Anderson, of all people, to be the man to push the Cowboys out of the playoffs. 23 carries, 123 yards, and 2 touchdowns. He had more carries than Todd freaking Gurley. Are you, what? Todd Gurley, 16 for 115 yards and a touchdown. His longest run of the game was 35 yards. Jared Goff had 6 carries himself for 12 yards. And of course, basically on the play that sealed the game, Jared Goff scrambled for the first down. Jeff Heath, my man, I'm calling you out right now. Jeff Heath he literally just stood there, looked in the backfield. Jared Goff literally ran basically right around Jeff Heath and picked up the first down to win the freaking game. Receiving wise, they didn't really have an amazing receiver. With Jared Goff only having 186 yards, you're not going to have someone go for over 100 yards more than likely. Robert Woods, 6 for 69. Brandon Cooks, 4 for 65. Everyone else on the team had 2 or less carries. Only 5 different receivers actually caught a pass. Running-wise, though, look at all the people that had handoffs. Cooks, Reynolds, Robert Woods, Jared Goff, Todd Gurley, CJ Anderson. I don't think that the Cowboys utilized all their weapons enough in this game. Well, I don't even think we ran one motion with Tavon Austin. That's usually a big part of a game plan, is motioning around Tavon Austin. And against the Rams, I kind of expected that to happen. Michael Gallup actually really took over in that second half. 6 catches, 119 yards. And of course, he had one very, very good drive where he had 70 or 80 receiving yards on one drive alone, I believe. He had 44 yards as his longest catch of the game. And of course, Amari Cooper, 29 yards for his longest catch. So, of course, the next thing to talk about is going to be the play calling. I feel like the Rams called a very, very good game. A lot of their pass plays looked like it could have been a run, and you could definitely tell that the Cowboys defense really could not tell the difference between a pass, a bootleg, a run play. We really just could not tell the difference. And another big thing is that Sean Lee actually played quite a few snaps in this game, and you definitely noticed that. I feel like it sucks to say this at this point, but Leighton Vander Esch is a better linebacker than Sean Lee, and I think that Sean Lee actually may retire after the season, and I would be completely with it if he wanted to become maybe the Cowboys linebacker coach. I really do hope that the Cowboys keep Chris Richard. If he makes it off to some other team, I'd be very, very disappointed. That man came in and really turned our secondary around, completely turned our secondary around, and our defense in general. So I really do hope that we keep that man on the team. But Sean Lee, I just don't think is as good as Leighton Vander Esch. Even at this point, Leighton only having 1 year under his belt, I think is still the better linebacker. And if we would have played Leighton a little bit more, I feel like he would have made some better plays. There was one play specifically I remember. I don't remember exactly what part of the game it was in. I think it was the second quarter. It was a screen pass, and Sean Lee got blocked by the offensive lineman. And multiple times I've seen Leighton Vander Esch push through a blocker and tackle the guy before he pick up the first down. And I feel like Leighton probably would have done it there. Probably my favorite play from LVE is versus the Falcons, when he tackled the offensive lineman with one hand and he tackled the running back with another on a screen pass. Probably my number one thing I hated about this game when it came to what the Cowboys decided to do was on 4th and 1, and we were down by 8 points. We were easily in field goal range, or I should say easily, because to be honest, Brett Maher has kind of been inconsistent. I believe it would have been a 52 or 53-yard field goal at that point, which I honestly still would have rather took the field goal. Down by 8 points, it was at the start of the 4th quarter, and as we were lining up for it, I was like, what are we doing? I feel like the Cowboys should have taken the field goal there, and then we could have won with a touchdown. So I don't really know what the Cowboys were going for there. I mean, if we would have picked it up, it would have looked pretty genius, but to me, I didn't think it was the safest call. I didn't think it was the smartest call. I feel like the Cowboys probably should have done that. And also, when it came to the 2-point conversion, the first touchdown, I feel like you should actually go for the 2-point conversion first. That way you just have a little bit more knowledge about the game and what you should do in terms of an onside kick. If you miss the 2-point conversion the first time you go for it, or should you wait to do the 2-point conversion? I feel like you should do the 2-point and then worry about taking just the extra point to tie it to go to overtime later in the game. That is my reaction to the Cowboys versus the Rams. Unfortunately, my Cowboys were taken out at the hands of C.J. Anderson and the Los Angeles Rams. I guess I should mention Todd Gurley as well. They both did have 100 rushing yards, which is insane versus the Cowboys defense for that to happen. Sadly, got taken out. Usually it's by the hands of Aaron Rodgers and the Packers, who I guess now is our grandfather, and now our father would be C.J. Anderson. I guess that makes sense. But I hope you guys did enjoy the video, and if you did, smack the like button, subscribe, and comment. Depressed Cowboys fan here. I'll see you guys next time.